Thank you very much. So I will speak about chemical communication between the varroa and the mite on the honeybees today. And so as you know, the varroa is a parasite of the adult bees, but also of the larvae and the brood. So to parasite its oats, it needs to recognize it. And in the same way, the honeybees, they can recognize the mite and to fight against the mite. So the mite and the bees needs to find its target, and the question is, how do you do that? Do they that? Excuse me. So let's speak about the mite. So the target of the mite are the larvae just before the capping of the cells and the nurse bees. And to do that, we have to know that the mite is very well equipped. The first pair of legs got a kind of plate at the end of the leg. And this plate is full of sensor. We call that sensile plate. And there is sensile for odor, for detection of heat, of hygrometry, and so on. So it's a well-equipped organism. So we were searching when we got the mite in the 80s in Europe. We were searching for compounds, chemical compounds, which would be produced by the larvae and which would attract the mite. And so a few labs did that, and Rickley and Donze found a bunch of compounds and which were attracting for the mite. And we found 3 ethyl and methyl esters using olfactometer. We call that a 4-arm olfactometer. So it was in very laboratory condition, and we tried to see what's happened when we make topical application of this ester on larvae just before the capping of the larvae. And what we found, and so we put back the frame in the varroa-infested colony, and we found that in the cells which got the compound, the chemical compounds, we had between 19 and 100% more infestation. So it's something working. And we play also with the compound, and we spray the compound on the varroa-infested bees in cage condition. And what we got, we saw the varroa leaving the workers and going to the floor, and it was much more efficient, as you can see in blue, dark blue, when you put the esters compared to a control. So it was a good try, very interesting for scientists, but what about beekeeping? So about the other compound of my colleague, I don't know, maybe they made a patent of it, I don't know about that, but we did in my institute, and we wanted to make a trap from those compounds. And so we did a trap, but it was really not efficient enough. We could trap maybe 50 varroa mite when there was 2,000 in the hive. So unfortunately, it was not working. But I mean, we did it. Okay, so now we know that there is some compounds produced by the prepupae. Those compounds, they stimulate, they induce the oviposition of the mite. So Peter Rosenkranz's lab is working on that at the moment. He shows that it is just on this stage that the stimuli is produced. And of course, if he can find the stimulus, that will be very interesting to use to fight against the mite. But there is also another stimulus produced by the larvae. It's an anti-oviposition, so it do exactly the opposite. And Nazi and Milani found that heptadecene plays this role. Probably there is maybe other compounds, we don't know, but he tried to use it in beekeeping, but he couldn't do it, neither. Another interesting aspect is a pheromone. Is there a pheromone on the varroa mite? It could have aggregation pheromone, but there is nothing at the moment known on that, and we don't believe that it could be because there is no aggregation of the mite in the colony. So there was a controversial data on it, but even if it does exist, it's not very strong, aggregation. And about the sex pheromone, so very recently, Peter Rosenkranz's lab published a sex pheromone which is made of 3 fatty acids and one compound that we spoke yesterday, it's ethyl oleate. So ethyl oleate induces the mating from the male. You see here the male, and so the pheromone is produced by very young female and induce the mating of the male. So of course, it could be interesting to see if we could use those compounds to fight against the mite. I don't know, because ethyl oleate is also a very important pheromone in the colony, so we'll see. Okay, another target that the mite should find is adult bees. So it was proved that the mite like nurse bees. And they can go from one bee to another one very, very quickly. They are very good to do that. So they prefer the nurse bees. They are attracted by bees because bees have electrostatic charges, and they produce temperature, and also they produce a kind of odors. And one of them was identified on foragers as repellent. So they don't like to go on forager because the foragers, they produce some repellent. Okay, so let's know another chapter. It's okay? I change my chapter. Now I go from how the bees can recognize the mite. So we know that the bees fight the mite, so of course it means that they recognize the mites. So how it can work? First, we have to know that there is kind of arm race between the mite and the bees, because the varroa need to hide. It's very important for him to hide, and especially and to be mimicry. And so maybe you know that the next mate recognition in the honeybees. This is very, very important for your bees. So you should know that each of your colony has its own odor. And when a young bee emerges, the first thing she will do is to learn the odor of the colony. This is why you show them with the antennae. They touch each other and say, "Oh yes, good, it's my colony, and so on." This is very important because in the fall in Europe there is nothing to forage, so there is robbing, and if the bees are not capable to see if there is robbing, they will be robbed, and they will not survive the winter. So this is a very important process. So the question is, do the mite use the same compounds? We know the compounds. They are hydrocarbon compounds. There are between 80 and 100 compounds that we know. And what is the difference is the proportion between the different compounds which make the signature of this colony or this colony, right? So what we have done with Zachary Wang, we went to China, and we got mite from Apis mellifera, and we put the mite in cap cells of Apis cerana or Apis mellifera. And we do that also with varroa from Apis cerana. We put them in cap drone of mellifera or cerana, and we looked at the cuticular the profile of the cuticular hydrocarbons of the mite and of the bees. And as you can see, the parasite here, this is the varroa, and here this is the varroa. Whatever it comes from, it will always mimic its host. So this is okay. I wanted to show you that. So, but even if it does mimic, the bees can recognize him, so it's not enough. So what are the mechanisms? So to explain you, I would like to take an example, the chance to show you our honeybee colony which survived to varroa in France. So we have two populations of bees, one in west of France, close to a small village which resists to the Roman Empire long time ago, and also in Avignon. So we hypothesize that those bees are resistant because they can do all kind of different things, grooming, varroa, VSH. It can be capping direction, regulation of environment, swarming, and SMR, reduction of varroa fertility. So yesterday, Randy told you about that. He showed you the results, so I will not present them to you today. I will focus on what is important today is varroa hygienic and grooming behavior. So grooming behavior, we set up a very simple test to test the resistant or sensitive bees, and what we found that our bees are better to detect the varroa mite and to destroy it. And we also looked at VSH, which is this behavior. So the mite will detect infested cells and uncap the cells and eventually destroy the cell. So it's called varroa sensitive hygiene, VSH. So we look at that on our bees, and they are VSH bees. Good. So as we went to work on chemical communication, we looked at what those varroa mite could produce as chemicals, and we found some chemicals, cuticular hydrocarbons, of course, but also acids and esters. So we set up a very simple assay. We put a few bees in petri dishes, and two of them we glue a paper filter on the thorax. And 2 days after, we come and we put some of the compounds on the filter, and we watch the behavior of the other bees. And 3 of the compounds that we have identified trigger a behavioral response. And as you can see in orange, the resistant bees are more active to induce the comportment, the behaviors, compared to the resistant bees. So it was very interesting. We looked also at the response of the antennae. So it's called electroantenography. You take an antennae and you puff the odor and you look at the response. And so by this way, we could confirm that the surviving bees, their antennae, they respond better compared to the sensitive bees. Okay, but this tolerance is probably involving a lot of different genes. So as the genome was sequenced, we looked at gene expression of resistance versus sensitive bees. And what we have found that some genes are more active on the resistant bees, and they are linked with responsiveness to stimuli, which is odor, olfaction, and others, like the one you see here, are directly linked to olfaction. So again, olfaction is very important in this process, and our bees are good on it. So I went to visit John Harbaugh and Jeffrey Harris, because they select VSH bees to see what's happened on the gene expression of those bees. And so we had a collaboration, and what we found that only 3 genes are differently expressed in VSH or non-VSH bees, and many of them, they are linked again with olfaction, especially odorant binding protein. And some of you, you know Fanny Mondet. She made a thesis in Otago with Alison Mercer and in my lab, the both lab, and we were interested to see if there is a difference in gene expression of antennae in VSH bees versus non-VSH bees. And what we found that again, the antennae of VSH bees express differentially some genes, and especially some genes involved in olfaction, and again, odorant binding protein. So basically, the lesson of that, okay, is that the olfaction is very important in this process of the resistant bees, SMR also, and VSH. And VSH for us is maybe the most promising character to select for the bees, to select the bees. So, but how can we do? If we do the John Harbaugh experiment, material and method, it's very, 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 very time consuming. Not that, you know, it's possible for scientists, but not for beekeeping. So one way would be to know and to identify the chemicals produced by the infested cells, so we could use it in beekeeping. So with Fanny and Alison Mercer and I, we were searching for those compounds which are produced by the infested larvae, and we found that in infested larvae, the brood ester blend is different, and we found what we call VPS compound, nine compounds which are specific to this cell and which are used by the VSH bees to trigger the VSH behavior. So what we want to do now is use those chemicals for you guys to select your bees. So we are working at the moment on it, but it could be a spray. You will spray the compounds on cap cells, and you will go back maybe 1 hour after or 2 hours, whatever, and you will see if they uncap. If they uncap, okay, they are VSH, you can keep them, you can select on them, for example. Okay, and we develop another big experiment. We search for VSH and non-VSH colony. We want 1,500 of them, and we have already about 1,000, and we will sequence all of them. And so we are sequencing the genome, and with bioinformatics, we will try to see if there is some places on the genome which are specific to the VSH bees. And we believe they are. So when we will have found these markers, that will be another way that you could select your bees. Okay, so it will cost you a few bucks to see that. And of course, we could use both of them, the odors and the genomics. And to finish, I want to also speak a few seconds about that. There is another way that it could be used at the moment. It's the disrupting of the varroa-honeybee interaction by targeting the mite olfactory system. So on this antennae, varroa antennae, there are specific receptors which will be the receptor of the odors. So we are sure that they are specific of the mite. And the idea is to use a volatile compound which could block the receptor so that the mite would not be able to smell anymore. Okay? So I hope I convince you that the chemical communication between the mite and the honeybees is a very interesting topic for scientists, but also for beekeepers. And I thank you very much for your attention.